then you're limiting a kid's ability to find their own voice and their own thinking.
We're back, and we're going to be talking about Common Core in this segment. I'm joined by our Chief Education Correspondent, Rahema Ellis, to start off this important conversation about the Common Core. Before we do that, you just spent over a week of your life covering the Chicago teachers' strike. Dicey topic, fraught. So let's go there. What if there was one takeaway as a journalist, as a parent, what was it?
Teachers have a perception problem. There is this notion across the country that teachers are out there for themselves, that they don't work hard enough, they get paid too much, and they're complaining. I have people send me emails about why is it that teachers are saying they're on strike because they want air conditioning. How dare they want air conditioning? The perception is that the wrong issues are being discussed. If teachers had said, do you know how many of my children fainted in the classroom because it was too hot? The country would have had a whole different perception of them, but it wasn't framed that way. We were talking about questions of evaluation. Teachers saying, how dare you want to evaluate me based on how the students are performing on this test? And people say, well, everybody else is evaluated on how they perform, why not you? And why is it that we can't get rid of you on these evaluations? People weren't realizing that. Do you know that 91% of the teachers in Chicago are rated superior to excellent by the New Teachers Project, an independent group? Nobody's talking about that. They didn't put that out front. A small fraction of the teachers in Chicago are rated as unsatisfactory. Nobody's talking about it. If they were so horrible, why did everybody want to get rid of them? And you know who rates them? The principals. They don't rate themselves. So they have a perception problem. You were talking about poverty. Fascinating discussion you had going on here, Brian. One of the things in Chicago, more than 84% of the children in the Chicago public schools qualified for the free and reduced lunch program. 50% of the children are African American, something like 45% are Hispanic. That would make you think that, who lives in Chicago? Where did all the white kids go? Well, they have opted out of the system because it's a terrible system. So you have poor minority children who are left with a system without resources. Teachers telling me, and there's one here that you spoke with already, Diane Muhammad, we saw her on the picket line, and she talked about working in subjects outside of her subject area. Teachers coming to school without books. There's a real perception problem for the teachers, not just in Chicago. As Tim Knowles, who's with the University of Chicago, said to me, the battle in Chicago is the battle for teachers all across this country.
Thank you for that. And now to the big train coming down the track in 46 different states. And track is actually a great metaphor because train tracks don't stop at state lines. And yet, you know, education policy, state by state, locality to locality, has been a different gauge traditionally. Tell us about Common Core.
Well, across this country, people have wanted to have ownership to what happens in their states. We're very proud of what happens here in New York and Texas and Illinois. And likewise, with the pride comes a feeling that we know how to do things pretty well. We don't need anybody, we don't need the federal government telling us how to do this. But when you look across what's happening across our country, we're not doing it pretty well as a nation. And so, if I can toss to this story we've got here, the nation's governors not so long ago, they adopted something called the Common Core. It's tougher, new, more demanding standards where students will no longer be asked just to fill in the bubble. They're going to have to do more than that. And across this country, schools are gearing up to make it happen. At J.B. Atkinson Elementary in Louisville, all 361 students are encouraged to think big.
Every day at JBA is one day closer to college.
Long ranked near the bottom on standardized tests, Kentucky was quick to embrace the Common Core, a blueprint for K through 12th grade English and math adopted by nearly every state. While there's no required curriculum, Common Core does two basic things. It raises academic standards nationwide, and for the first time, an A will mean the same thing for students everywhere.
So a student moving throughout Kentucky is going to be expected to learn the same thing, and that's important. And students moving state to state will have a common expectation of what they're supposed to learn.
Teachers here at J.B. Atkinson Elementary School in Louisville say Common Core allows them to take a new approach in their classes, emphasizing critical thinking for students, not just test taking. And that's the other hallmark of Common Core. Fewer topics, more depth. Reading books like Charlotte's Web, children don't just recap the story, but like detectives, use the text as evidence to support their opinions about it. Math students won't just solve equations, they'll work in groups to analyze real-world problems, such as how do stores use averages to calculate how much merchandise they need.
Get kids engaging with the problem solving and the
Teachers prepping for Common Core have a lot to learn before it goes nationwide in 2014.
Every teacher I've started working with was overwhelmed at the transition between how we used to teach and the Common Core standards.
Get out your green folders.
Still, some welcome it.
Before Common Core, teaching was a lot about a checklist. But now you're really looking at where are your students and how can I design instruction to get them what they need.
A new way to create a common standard of high expectations. One of the biggest difficulties will be how we get teachers and students to this new standard. A new study said that 78% of teachers are aware of Common Core, but only 28% feel that they are prepared to implement it in their classrooms.
That's why that imagery of a train coming down the tracks, I think, occurred to me. Along those lines, that brings us to our next guest here on stage, Ted Chambers, a 7th and 8th grade teacher?
Yes.
At Clarence Edwards Middle School in Charlestown, Massachusetts.
Yes.
So I have many questions for you.
Sure.
Tell us your level of excitement personally about Common Core. Are you pro or con? How much training do you expect in it? And experience may vary how much training everybody else is going to
Sure. Well, I think the amount of training the average teacher expects is probably pretty low. But I'm excited about it because I co-direct a project in Boston that's funded by the AFT Innovation Fund. It's called 21st Century Lessons. And what we do at 21st Century Lessons is we try to bring the best teachers that we can find in a particular subject area together, and we have them build entire units of great lessons. We lay the lessons out on PowerPoint, we embed them with best practices, we create assessments and handouts, and then we make those lessons available on sharemylesson.com. Make sure everybody writes that website down. And also betterlesson.org.
And you're convinced Common Core is going to be a better way to go?
Well, yes, because now, you know, there are clearly a lot of challenges with the Common Core. But my personal feeling is it finally presents that opportunity to overcome that age-old problem in teaching of reinventing the wheel. You know, we still have a work model in education that's literally rooted in the 19th century, where we go home, we're individuals, you know, we work alone, you know, we try to do the best we can, but we have 100,000 teachers, more or less, in every subject area at every grade level who are working by themselves. And I think that this is our opportunity as educators and as professionals to actually seize the moment and combine the standards nationally with the technology to make sure that we're delivering the highest quality instruction into every single classroom every day.
A woman named Peggy Crouch from Fordham posted on our website, what does not work is all the redefining of curriculum. She's talking about a pendulum swinging back and forth every few years, something you must feel on the other side of the coin.
Well, you know, Massachusetts has had a fairly successful run with standards now for a better part of a decade. So we're fairly acclimated, and that may not be the experience in every state. But I think that the Common Core really does present an opportunity here to do a couple things. One, it allows us to have a national conversation about what the meaning of public schools are in the United States. And I think it also provides an opportunity for us to take control of our occupation, in our profession, and to really talk about what we're going to do as a community nationally to get kids ready for life and college and for life and work in the 21st century.
That makes me think of just a couple of things. One, and that is, how do you explain this to parents who see their kids working in groups? The group work is not what Common Core is. It encourages group work, but that's not Common Core, is it?
Sure. Well, I think that the best way that we explain the Common Core to parents is we tell them that we're going to focus on a few key things, but we're going to dig deeper. And we're going to make sure, because when you look at countries that are successful like Japan, where they cover fewer standards, but they get more in depth. And that's, we're going to really focus on college and career readiness.
All right, we're going to talk about this in the room after a break when we come right back.